Halloween
Forever.
Steve, what's Irish and stays outside all year long?
Irish and stays outside all day long.
All year long.
All year long.
Yeah.
Oh. I don't know.
Steve, it's patio furniture.
Oh my God.
Welcome, boys and girls, to a very Irish, I don't know, minisode of Halloween is Forever. I'm Brian.
I'm Steve.
You get it? Patty.
Yeah.
Furniture.
Oh yeah, no, I get it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Irish.
Yeah.
It's an Irish naming, typical Irish name, Patty, and then something, right? All right, guys. Steve's just mad because I'm interrupting his spa day, and by spa day he means eating spaghetti.
Yep. That's a little spaghetti lunch.
Just a little old spaghetti lunch here. On a beautiful sunny Sunday, we're recording this of Memorial Day weekend. This minisode will come out on Memorial Day. Happy Memorial Day to all those who celebrate it. We're gonna drink some beers. We're gonna We're gonna eat some hot dogs. Actually, what are you gonna eat for Memorial Day, Steve? You getting down on some hot dogs? Hot dogs are the ideal Memorial Day food for me. Or wings.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Yeah. It's possible I'll have some hot dogs and burgers, but also I got from Aldi. Aldi they've been having their Spätzle back.
Oh yeah, I love the Aldi Spätzle. We bought that all the time.
Yeah, so I have some Aldi Spätzle with some like Weisswurst.
I love a Weisswurst. Oof,
which is like a hot dog. So like
it's like a fancy German hot dog made of veal.
Right.
Usually.
So like I don't know. I might just eat. Yeah, it's still eating shittily because it's still cheese and pasta and hot dog. That's all very American-ish things, but also it's just in the German style. So
yeah. Well, I had my hot dogs yesterday. I went to the Pirates game, took the girls to a little baseball game, another great Memorial Day activity. And we're just being American as fuck over here. And ate 2 hot dogs there. So I had hot dog burps all night. It was great. I eat hot dogs for the burps primarily. Love a hot dog burp. Today I'm going to make some wings. I'm going to fry up some wings. Going to get out the old turkey fryer and fry up a whole mess of wings. And then tomorrow I think we're going to make fajitas. I think I'm going to do fajitas. Yeah, something just ethnic for Memorial Day. Just really getting into by ethnic I mean Texas.
Fajitas. Yeah.
Applebee's is an authentic Mexican restaurant. I mean, Chi-Chi's is not Chi-Chi's. Chili's is the fajita place.
They're all. They all do fajitas in the sizzling skillet.
When I grew up, Chili's was the most ethnic restaurant I had been to until I was 20 years old.
Yeah. Let me ask, going back to the Pirates game, did you eat that big dumbass hot dog that has the pierogies on it? The
Renegade or whatever? No, fuck that noise. That's dumb. Yesterday was one of, so the Pirates, I work with the team, as we're sponsored with, I work for Miller Coors and, or Molson Coors now. And then we're sponsored with the Pirates. So I do a whole bunch of work stuff with them. And yesterday was one of our big group outing games. So we had like 100 tickets. So we had all types of, people, guests there and stuff. And then we had what they call like a picnic park, which means we had like hospitality, like a hospitality tent, which was great because there were 2 rain delays. So it gave us somewhere to stand during the rain delays. So they have like a buffet out and it's just hot dogs, just a big thing of hot steam, just big steamy thing of wet hot dogs. Oh, they're so good. And then they had coleslaw. So I put the coleslaw on the hot dogs, but they didn't have chili, but mustard, coleslaw and mustard on there.
Oh yeah.
And then they had like pasta salad and chips and cookies and all the yummy, tasty beer you can drink. So I ate them free hot dogs. I ain't paying those $18 hot dogs with pierogies on them if I got free hot dogs. But yeah, a couple of rain delays. But hey, for those of you who give a shit, which is 0.1% of you, Buccos won again against the Braves. It was a fun one. All right, all the baseball and the food talk aside, Steve, you be drinking on something on this beautiful, just barely afternoon here?
I'm drinking.
What are you getting on?
But not heavy drinking, just drinking.
Mm-hmm.
I got a beer, and you'll like this one.
Yeah.
It's from the Hofbrauhaus.
Oh, the Hofbrau.
The Hofbrauhaus, but Freising edition.
Oh, the Freising, the other Hofbrauhaus.
Yeah,
not
the
the,
other
not the
Hofbrauhaus.
Hofbrauhaus that has the Schotskis, but the other Hofbrauhaus. I love that Hofbrauhaus. Hofbrau Freising. I used to call in a wholesaler and work for Sly Fox down in Maryland, and they had those guys. They imported, they were a wholesaler for them from Maryland, and I would get a bunch of day Helles and drank on it.
Yeah.
Or no, it was their Dortmunder was what I used to drink, just like their export strength Helles.
Yeah, I got the Hefeweiss though.
Yeah, the Weiss beer. They have a Dunkel as well, and I think they have a Dunkel Weiss.
Yeah, it's at for whatever reason of all places, it's at the Moon Giant Eagle in their mix and match.
Oh, weird.
They seem to always keep Freising in there.
Interesting.
And it's like the only place I find it.
Interesting. I wonder if they've had just like some cases sitting in the back that they just slowly leak into the into the old mix and match. It probably got taken out of the sets or something like that. But anyway, I haven't chipped into the beers yet. Friday night, this is a marathon, not a sprint type of drinking weekend. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be drinking significant amount of beers every day, but I'm trying to keep them to the evening and just keep the day at least up until like 4 p.m. just to hydration and stuff like that. I did Friday night was Joe Bob, so that was a Joe Bob week. They played Graduation Day, which is a fun one. The family had some plans, so they were gone until late in the evening. So I sat in the basement, watched spooky movies, and drank a whole mess of beers, which was fun. Just hung out with the dogs. Then last night, went to the Pirates game, had a couple 2 Tree beers, have some friends coming over tonight, get out a couple 2 Tree beers, and then family coming over tomorrow, have probably a couple 2 Tree beers. So earlier in the day here, I'm remaining on the hydration kick, although this is the most hydrating thing in the world. I bought a case of this at Costco, a mixed pack of this Poppy. It's like a better for you soda.
Oh,
and it's just like
probiotic tummy sodas?
Well, it's not probiotic, because if it was probiotic, I wouldn't have got it, because probiotic means I'm going to shit myself, which I'm not interested in doing.
Okay.
Like one time I accidentally bought probiotic tea. Yeah. And it was just like, it was just not Earl Grey. What was it? It was like chamomile or something. Yeah. And it was probiotic. Oh, it was lemon ginger. And I'm like, I just want to get some lemon ginger tea. I put the wrong box in my cart, got home, realized it was probiotic. I was like, all right, I'll give it a try. Shit my brains out. Didn't like it.
Nice.
Which I don't understand why how it could be probiotic if I'm pouring like boiling water on it? Like, how does it have like active cultures? I don't know.
Yeah. How does it survive?
maybe it wasn't hot enough. I don't know, but it did make me shit my pants, and then I threw it away. But this is prebiotic, which in most cases I feel doesn't mean anything. It's just a fake made up word they get to make like people who are health conscious buy their product. Because I think I was reading prebiotic in this instance, I think just says it has apple. It's like the acid in it, instead of using like citric acid or something like that, like they use apple cider vinegar, which people say has like health benefits. And I'm sure it does in some capacity, but it's not like raw active culture apple cider vinegar with like acetobacter and stuff in it.
Right.
It's just fucking has acetic acid in it. You know what I mean? From adding, I'm sure it's pasteurized too. So
yeah.
I don't know exactly. I think prebiotic, again, it might have some enzymes in it that's supposed to help in digestion. But again, I think it's just bullshit to make somebody buy their product. But I bought it because it only has, I'm on that health kick, trying to lose the lbs and get in shape. And it only has 4 grams of sugar in it, which is way less than a normal can of pop. Yeah. And it's really good. It's legitimately very good. This is strawberry lemon.
Is it like 0 calories or is it
no? It's like 25 calories a can.
Okay.
So, a modest amount of calories per can.
Yeah.
So,
because I used to drink a lot of sparkling water because it was like between like 0 and 5 calories. But just, I don't know. Yeah. I've lost the taste for it. Like something about it is disgusting. And then it also like just upsets my my reflux. So I just stopped.
Gives you the heartburns.
Yeah, I was just drinking too much of it. And so I just stopped.
Yeah, no, I still crank on that. I buy what's the one? Pretty much I'll buy whichever one's on sale. I like the LaCroix, the Pamplemousse, but I don't really give a shit. Whatever's on sale, whatever citrus flavored, lemon, lime, grapefruit version that's on sale. But this is strawberry lemon, and this is the best one. But there's also a straight up just orange soda.
Yeah,
and this does have it doesn't have aspartame or anything in it, but it has, what is the other, stevia.
Yeah, stevia.
Which is the other like artificial sweetener, but not as artificial perhaps. But it has an orange soda, and it straight up just tastes like regular orange soda. And then I'm like, how much sugar needs to be in there? You know what I mean? Because a normal can of like Sunkist or Fanta, I swear, has like 30 grams of sugar per can or some crazy shit. And you're like, if this kind of tastes the same, I understand it has stevia in it too, but does it really need that much sugar?
Right.
It's wild.
And that's also always been the argument with like the Mexican Cokes and the Mexican sodas, because they use just like plain regular sugar,
just cane sugar, right? Rather than high fructose corn syrup. Yeah,
right, exactly. So it's like fine that way with just like a little bit of regular Mexican sugar, and then we put in like this insane, hard to break down, complex like corn sugar that
like spikes your blood sugar and stuff. And it's 100% just because of like big agro is like, use more corn sugar, and they're like, it tastes fine with 10 grams of sugar. They're like, make 30.
Yeah. Put it in. Addict
Guys,
them. Put the sugar in the buns, in the bread.
They're like, wait, it tastes pretty good with 10. It's way too sweet with 30, and it murders people. They're like, put the 30 in it. I think it's just what they all get. Listen, if you've heard me say it once, you've heard me say it 1,000 times. It's cream. Corn rules everything around us.
Hell yeah.
Everything around me, not everything around us. That's not how you spell cream. That's not the acronym.
Nope. Creux.
Creux. That's the French version when they make LaCroix. Creux. Yeah. But anyway, that's what I'd be drinking on. It's pretty tasty. I would suggest. I would suggest it to friends and relatives. All right. We got a couple other things we got to do at the top of this whole goddamn show. First of all, if you're new to the show, maybe you're exploring, maybe you're a little curious out there on the World's of Podcast, and you're like, what do these boys be doing? Well, this is what we do every damn Monday. We put some spooky shit out there on the internet. And this is what's called a Minisode. But the first Monday of every month is called a Showdown episode. And what we do is we pick a topic, start out with a whole bunch of topics on a spinning ass wheel. We spin that spinning ass wheel. If you have suggestions for that spinning ass wheel to add topics to us, add topics to it and suggest them to us, go check us out on all the social medias at Halloween is Forever. Send us a DM. Say, hey, I want to put this on the topics on the wheel. Put the topic on the wheel. We'll put it on the wheel. Then we'll spin it. Maybe it'll come up. But right now, we already got a whole bunch of them on there. We spin it 3 times. We put those 3 out on the social medias for our friends and followers to vote on. Once we have a topic, me, Steve, and our guest for that month's Showdown episode each pick a movie or TV episode or whatever it is that pertains to that particular topic. Then during that Showdown episode, we all present our arguments for our pick. We argue, somebody gets put in the Boston Crab. Somebody gets put in the Camel Clutch. Eventually, someone gets, a diamond cutter, and then someone takes home that son of a bitch and championship strap for the month after a vote. We announce what won last week? We did, right? We told everybody that next month, So June's Showdown episode, the first Monday in June, our Showdown is going to talk about our favorite episodes of the often overlooked one season, 19 episode masterpiece, as far as I'm concerned, from the early 90s called Eerie, Indiana, which Steve eloquently described as Pete and Pete meets the X-Files, which I think is a perfect way to put it. Such a fun show. It's only 19 episodes long. Do yourself a favor. It's streaming for free in a bunch of places. So we are going to talk about our favorite episodes of that show on the first Monday in June. Our guest, should we announce our guest, Steve? Why not?
We haven't announced our guest yet, so we can announce our guest now.
We have a reoccurring guest, guys. One of our favorite reoccurring guests. We have our excellent friend, Louie, from the Haunted Hangover podcast. If you're a spooky ooky boy or girl out there, and especially if you love Halloween, which obviously we do, and all good spooky ooky boys and girls do, check out the Haunted Hangover podcast. Louis talks about all things Halloween year long. Big horror fan, filmmaker, maker of music, all different, I would say connoisseur of all things nostalgic and spooky. And I know he's a big fan of this show. I've heard him talk about it on his show. So I reached out and said, hey, boy, you want to come over here and talk about your show? And he is going to oblige us. So that's going to be our guest for June. We are also ready to pick our episodes. So it'll give you all a little head start to go out there. You can watch the whole all the episodes. Like I said, it's only 19, but it's a super fun show that you should check out regardless. But if you don't have time to watch them all, you can watch the ones that we decide. They're half-hour shows, so they're like 20 minutes, once the commercials are taken out. So they're pretty darn quick. So I will tell you, first of all, generally speaking, we give our guests the first pick, which we did this time as well. And I'll be honest with you, I was messaging Louis. I already knew which one he was going to pick. It was down to one of two, and I guessed which one he was ultimately going to pick. He is going with an episode which was up there on my list, and I specifically didn't set my heart on it because I was pretty confident he was going to pick this one because I think I've heard him talk about it on his show. He's doing an episode called Scariest Home Videos, which is super, super fun, wacky episode. Spoiler alert, it got a mummy in it. Got a dang old mummy in it.
Dang old mummy.
And then what episode is that, Steve?
That should be episode 5.
Episode 5. That's our early on one. I am going to pick an episode that has a lot in common with Louis' episode. And we'll talk about that on their Showdown episode. I picked an episode called Mr. Cheney. I did not write down the episode number. Steve, what's the episode number of that one?
That one should be 14.
14. I know that's later in the season. That one's definitely later in the season. All right. That leaves it to Steve. Steve, I know you were between a couple. Which episode are you going to pick?
Man, I'm still actually torn.
Okay.
So
what are you going between?
So right now I'm between The Lost Hour.
That's a good one.
And The Loyal Order of Corn.
Why can't I remember that one? That one's not ringing a bell for me. That's not the one with the harvest. Like he wins the harvest. No. Okay.
No.
He becomes like the Harvest King or whatever.
No.
No, that's mine.
That's yours. Yeah,
that's
your
mine.
episode,
Right.
no.
That's Mr. Cheney. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's a guys. Spoiler alert. That's why I said Louis has a mummy in his. Mine got a dang old wolf man. Got a dang old werewolf. And that's all I was remember was the werewolf. But yes, that's the same one where he wins the Harvest King or whatever. So.
Yeah. So I wanted to do The Loyal Order of Corn because it has like a lot of hallmarks of similar things, but it also doesn't have a villain in it.
Doesn't have okay. I'm for some reason I'm blanking on what this episode is.
So it's an episode where Marshall and Simon are investigating the Loyal Order of Corn, which is basically like it's like a Mason Lodge. But also, obviously, you see that there's going to be like Illuminati kind of ties to it.
Okay.
And then they find a TV screen in like the secret room of the order, and Simon gets transported to another planet.
Oh, yeah. Now I know which one it is. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like kind of They Live and Illuminati stuff kind of in the upfront, but the back half of the episode is more just, I don't know, there's not like a real villain to it because the person who would be the villain is Ray Walston, who I won using Galaxy of Terror last month in the Showdown.
How dare you bring that up? How dare you?
I just think people should remember that I am still champ. And the reason why I allowed Brian to get his Mr. Cheney episode is because we discussed it ahead of time, you know, just in case the loyal listeners will be like, why did Brian just decide when all the episodes got picked?
You were waffling. I said, which one do you want? You said, I'm between a couple.
Yeah, but they need to know this happened beforehand.
Yes, it did. Because we have to get we have to communicate, with our guest what their pick is first, and then we go from there.
Yeah. So even though I do like that episode, people should go check it out because it does have Ray Walston in it. It's also one of the handful of episodes that John Astin's in, and John Astin is like the head of the Loyal Order of Corn. So it's a good episode, but it doesn't have like it loses its tension halfway through.
I see.
Because it's more about just like them figuring out how to get Simon home. There isn't like a real mystery to it anymore.
I see.
Yeah, they figured it out pretty
I haven't
quickly.
seen that one. That's not, interestingly enough, I should watch it again. I haven't watched the whole series in a while. I remember that episode with him getting sent to the other planet and having to get him back and all that stuff. But it's just not one that I've thought that much about, Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna go with The Lost Hour. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm settled. I'm gonna go with The Lost Hour.
That's a classic. That's a classic one. I was also thinking about, and I don't have the names of the episodes up in front of me, but the one with the evil ATM machine.
Oh yeah.
Redundant, but yes, I love that one. The episode itself is mediocre. I just love the man in the ATM.
Right. Yeah.
He's
it's
so
such a max
creepy.
headroom.
Oh, it's super max headroom. Like, yeah, you can immediately figure out why I like it. He has the weird rubbery features and looking stuff, and he's creepy as fuck. And then the other one that Louis was looking at doing was Just Say No, which is another great episode. But his first pick was Scariest Home Videos.
Yeah, like Loyal Order of Corn. Like, I mean, all of these episodes are kind of like the X version of for babies.
Mm-hmm.
So like Loyal Order of Corn is like They Live in Phantasm for babies.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure. The ATM machine one is, like it's max headroom and like Ghost in the Machine stuff for babies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
So very, very, very nostalgic for me. I love the show when it came out, and I've continued to love it. And you just couldn't find it for a long time. Like, maybe when I was in college, like kind of pre-streaming type of stuff. There is a DVD that was released, but like this was before, Amazon and all that stuff. You probably could have got it on eBay, I'm sure, at that time. But now that it is streaming multiple places for free in the last handful of years, I've revisited it and just kind of fallen in love with the series all over again. So I'm super excited for us to talk about it in our Showdown episode for June. But guys, we got a couple other things we got to talk about, and then we got to talk about a sumbitch movie today. First of all, we are getting ready. Has it released yet? Yeah, it did. Last week, right? Our first episode of our new Patreon exclusive podcast, Youth Group is Forever. For those of you who have been following on the Patreon, here's how this goes. We got a Patreon. It's Halloween. It's patreon.com/Halloween is Forever. And we got a couple of dang old tiers over there. But for the premier tier, the tier you're going to want to get, where you get access to the Discord, where you can hang out with us during recordings, as we oftentimes have. Dan's in the Discord right now. We oftentimes have some of our friends here watching live in the Discord, and commenting and gibber jawing and all that type of stuff. If you want to do that, you sign up for that rascal tier at $5 a month. You also get a bunch of other specials. Steve does a lot of reviews and recos and fun stuff that get shared out to you via the Patreon. And then we also have a Patreon exclusive podcast. Steve, why don't you tell the boys and ghouls about how that project's been progressing? Because I'm feeling very good about where we're at with that.
Oof. We have a brand new series, and we did the first episode, and it is called Youth Group is Forever. Mm-hmm. And Brian is subjecting me
in his infinite wisdom.
In his infinite malice.
Yeah, both.
And Brian is subjecting me to Christian-made horror films. So they're not just films like Stigmata that
it's
have
not
a Christian,
just Christian themed. It is straight up Christian propaganda.
Yeah, it is propaganda. It is, and there's a segment in those shows called The Hell House, which is a reference to, the way Christians made haunted houses. Mm-hmm. Well, now Christians are also making horror movies, and the horror movies are all about, you better follow the rules or else somebody's going to be mad. And that somebody is Jesus Christ.
That is the big old daddy in the sky. He gonna be pissed.
He's gonna be mad.
Don't touch your dick. Don't you touch your dick.
don't touch anybody else's dick either.
No one's. Don't do it. It's explicit. Never. Very explicit. Don't pretend it's not there. So it's a lot of fun. We did our first episode after Steve. I should say, for those of you who are new to this, or for those of you who aren't on the Patreon yet, Steve made me watch every single one of the fucking Fast and the Furious movies. They're all 2+ hours long. They suck ass. We did that one. We talked about it. It was fun to talk about, but the movies are so disgustingly bad. These movies, I would dare say, infinitely more fun than all the Fast and the Furious movies. And we have talked about this already, but our first episode, which is already released, we'll do these once a month, is a movie called Blood Pageant, which kind of stars Snoop Dogg at times. It's
sure.
Bizarre. It's a fucking hilarious batshit movie. And I started watching what I think is going to be our next episode, Steve. I haven't went through. I was sniffing it out to see what it was going to be like. Wasn't doing the deep dive with taking notes and all that stuff for the episode. I just watched like the first 20 minutes and I'm pretty much hooked. The next one is I'll just as a teaser right now, so y'all can go out and find it, because you're gonna have to watch this in several sittings. No one could stomach this in one sitting. This movie, and let me get the year right so you can find it, because it's hard to find, but you can find it on YouTube.
Sure.
It is a extremely low budget Christian horror movie about the dangers of pornography, and it's called The Lock-In. And it is out there. Hold on, let me make sure, because there's multiple movies called that. I believe it's 2014, but I just need to double check.
Oh man.
Yes, it is. Man. The Lock-In from 2014. You can find it out there on YouTube. The version that I was watching was uploaded by somebody called The Movie Doctorful, and it's The Lock-In, and then in brackets, laughably bad Christian horror movie. But you could find it other places, streaming, all that type of stuff. Just steal it, please, 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 for the love of God. Or for the love of Satan, if there is an opportunity to not pay for this movie and watch it and steal it, please steal this movie. Do not make sure no one gets paid for it. I don't think you can even buy it anywhere. But in the off chance somebody's making money off this movie, do not steal this movie, please. But it is so cringy. It's great.
It has a 1.9 on IMDb.
Steve, you're in for a treat. This is perhaps, and I've only watched like 15 minutes of it, and it is, I don't know, it's the definition of cringe. I love it so much. I love it. We're going to talk about it. It's so fun. Everyone in it's so gay, and they're trying so hard to not be gay. It's awesome. And it's all about porn, the dangers of porn, and that demons attack you if you look at naked pictures of other human beings. That is the all-time. I don't even think it's on Tubi. I don't even think it's on Tubi, because I believe I looked. It is hard to find, because it is the dregs of the internet, and you're really, really going to enjoy it. And just remember, as a precursor, between now and then, don't look at porn, because demons will take your soul if you look at naked pictures of other human beings. That is true. It's a fact. I learned it during this movie. So get ready for that. Steve is grimacing, and then it's sweet. I can, through the microphone, I can smell just the sweet scent of revenge, the sweet smell of the malice that I'm instilling on your life. That is just affecting. It's affecting you in a way that it pleasures me. I just want you to know that.
It's three things I hate.
Yeah.
It's a found footage film.
It's a found footage too, and I was hoping you didn't see that until you watch. I mean, it's pretty clear from the stills it's a found footage movie, but it's also found footage, which I know Steve hates, and I was going to wait to bring that up for the episode. But it is just it's a menage a trois of Steve's most hated things, and I love it.
It's going to be the worst kind of found footage. So it's going to be a found footage. It's anti-porn, and it's a Christian film. That's all three things that I am not cool with, and
Dan
God,
just said,
fuck you,
pour
dude.
salt in the wound, Brian, and that's what I'm doing. Imagine that scene in Terrifier 2 where he's pouring the salt and just rubbing it into the wound. That's what I'm doing right now, and I'm relishing in it.
From an outside perspective, from a perspective outside of my own pain,
Mm-hmm.
I can appreciate that it appears that you are doing your homework at least.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've watched like 10 Christian horror movies already
because, well,
I'm becoming weirdly obsessed with them, to be honest with you. I may lose myself in this as well.
Because you're also picking things that you like will hurt me in weird ways. Because first we had to go through Snoop Dogg's religious era that I didn't even really know exists. I just kind of tangentially like Snoop Dogg.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was fun in the Def Jam games. I like that.
Yeah.
But then you're like, here, watch this part of Snoop Dogg. And I said, I don't like that. I don't like that. And then you're like, here's found footage. And I don't like that. So
yeah, this movie, I will be honest, this was near the top of my list from the beginning. Like I looked up this movie months ago, and this is a movie that one of the movies that made me want to do the weird Christian propaganda horror, because this is near the top. This is one of the big guns. There's some other really great ones out there, and there's some others that I haven't watched yet that I might want, that I've heard some damning things about. But this is one of the ones that like made me want to do this topic. So this is one of the big guns. I'll be honest with you. The first one I eased in with Blood Pageant. Blood Pageant looks like the Shawshank Redemption compared to this movie. I just want to say that right now. It truly looks like an absolute work of art compared to this movie. All right. So if you want to watch this and you want to just if you want to soak your soul in Steve's suffering like I am, if you want to lap up the sweet, salty flavor of his suffering, you need to come over and we actually have had, I think, as of late, some new Patreon subscribers, which we very much appreciate. Come on over to patreon.com/Halloween's Forever and help us savor Steve's suffering. You can tell I've been reading a lot of Clive Barker lately. All right. Speaking of Clive Barker, we were trying to figure out what to do for this here minisode. Not a lot of huge stuff coming out this week, not a lot of like big new things coming to streaming. So we're like, what should we do? And I was like, you know what? I just read, and I've been working my way through all of the Books of Blood series by which are series of short stories by Clive Barker. I've been doing them one by one. I know there's like collections where you can buy like 1 through 3 and 4 through 6. And I don't know if you can buy 4 through 6 because anyway, I know there's like a 1 through 3 one, but I've been finding the individual books and kind of working my way through them and collecting them as I read them. And I just finished volume 3 of the Clive Barker's Books of Blood series. And in it contains the story that is the inspiration for the movie we're going to talk about tonight, which is Rawhead Rex. For those of you who are hardcore 80s horror fans, undoubtedly you have heard of this movie. It was hard to find for a while. So, I remember probably a good, I don't know, Steve, what, like a decade, 12 years ago, maybe. This was kind of hard to find for a while. But now it's I mean, it was on Prime. It's streaming all over the place now. But for a while, this was kind of a difficult find. And it's a bonkers ass movie. And it's, dare I say, an even more bonkers ass story.
Yeah.
I will ask you, I guess first, Steve, have you seen the movie? Is this your first watch for the movie?
It actually is, because
okay.
I've never liked the character design.
Yeah, it's like wacky.
The character design looks like rip-off art of like an 80s heavy metal, album cover. Something you would see, something you wouldn't necessarily see on an Iron Maiden cover, but it's like Iron Maiden adjacent for like a band that would open for Iron Maiden. They go, "This is our Rawhead Rex." And it's like, keep it.
Yeah. So I will say this. I watched this movie before. I maybe only one other time, but it was probably 5 years ago, 5-6 years ago. And then since then, I have now read the story just recently within the last like month or so. and loved the story. I mean, Clive Barker, I've obviously read some Clive Barker. I'm familiar with it before this, but I've really delved into his short stories in the last year. And holy shit, he is, for me, fastly becoming one of... He was kind of a blind spot for me in terms of like horror literature. Like, grew up with a lot, reading a lot of Stephen King short stories and stuff like that. And even like Laird Barron and stuff. I really not a little bit more like weird fiction, but rather than like pure, although good God, some of Clive Barker short stories, I mean, it doesn't get any weirder than that. Right, especially in the first, there's one story in the first book with like this big rolling ball of humanity thing. It's wild. Anyway, I've fallen in love with Clive Barker short stories, and he's quickly becoming like one of, if not my favorite horror author. So I intend to read every damn thing that he's ever come out with. Have you read the story yet? Have you read the story?
I hadn't read that specific story. I've read a bunch of other stuff of his, and like I love a lot of his stuff, and a lot of his stuff also goes really well in the comic adaptations. So
I could see that. Not great for movie adaptations unless you have a big budget, but I can see it being very good for comic and graphic novel adaptations.
I mean, not just the big budget, but also just like a budget that is solely your own. Like it has to come from like a Mel Gibson type where it's just his own movie, so he can include as much fucked up stuff as he wants. Because like Clive Barker's stuff gets super dark.
Oh yeah.
Horny and just profane.
Yes, he is like, I can't even compare him to Stephen King besides just the quality of his work, because although Stephen King, we all know, can get pretty weird and horny at times, Clive Barker's shit is just unapologetically brutal, gruesome, sacrilegious, horny.
Yeah.
Violent. Like it's some of the most brutal, it's really, really brutal compared to, like I said, it's other kind of more mainstream horror authors like I said, Stephen King or something like that. And really the difference between this movie and the book is all that stuff gets toned down quite a bit. So having read the book, and I should say it's not a book, it's a long short story, like not novella length. I want to say it was probably the longest story in volume 3 of Books of Blood. I want to say it was maybe like 50 or 70 pages. Like, not short, but not like even really novella length, like under 100 pages significantly. But enough time to really like flesh things out. Anyway, it's fun story.
So what I was saying though is, because all this stuff is good to translate into comics, there is a comic translation of Rawhead Rex out there. And so when you pitched this episode idea, I went and found that and read it, because it's it's a 95 page trade paperback. And back in the early 90s for Eclipse Comics, they made a lot of adaptations of Books of Blood short stories.
Nice.
And one of them, or not one of them, but like a number of them were actually adapted by Steve Niles. And Steve Niles, in case you're not sure who that is, he would later go on to create 30 Days of Night. He's the writer and creator of 30 Days of Night. And then the artist who's on these books, and especially the Rawhead Rex one, is a artist by the name of Les Edwards. And this dude is like top notch, out of control. You would recognize his art probably most as he does like the poster and cover art for Nightbreed.
Oh, hell yeah.
So like his art style is very painted realism, and it falls into that kind of Frank Frazetta, but not quite as hyper real as Alex Ross, but he falls kind of in between there. And just like all of his work is, genre stuff of like horror and sci-fi. And so go check out Les Edwards' works, but also go find this copy of Rawhead Rex, because it's a pretty close translation or adaptation from the original short story. Because like I said, it's a 95 page trade paperback, but like I think they cut down on some of the verboseness. but it's really good, and it's also maintains just the profanity, just the monster like laying down and jacking off in front of a picture of the Virgin Mary or whatever. Like it's all in there. It's all there.
It's wild. It's wild. The story's wild. I didn't know that there was an adaptation, a comic adaptation until we talked about earlier this week. And I didn't get a chance to check it out, but I did look at some of the art, and that would be the only difference. Obviously you're imagining it, there's in Clive Barker's original story, but you imagine the creature as being more like hulking, right? And formidable. And then in the in the movie, he looks like he's not as big and intimidating as you imagine him to be as he is in the story. Because in the story they say he's like 9 foot tall and just like humongous and just rips doors off hinges and shit. And then in the movie they try to communicate that, but he's more like maybe 7 foot. He's approximately the size of like Kevin Nash, right? He's a Kevin Nash of monsters.
He's a 6'2" dude with a fucking prosthetic head on top that makes him like 7 foot with a mohawk. Yeah. And he's a little corny and he's got a rubber mask and all that stuff. But once you read the story, it does make you appreciate it a little bit more. And this is we'll get obviously going to get into it. The story. You almost have to read the story to appreciate the movie, because the movie just seems bonkers and kind of dumb and not like so many things are unexplained. It just has got a reputation as being kind of a nonsensical bonkers monster movie. But if you read the story, you appreciate a little bit more. You appreciate it a little bit more because it fleshes out a lot of the backstory. Yeah,
I will say, in just looking at some of the images online of the comic adaptation, I don't love the monster design.
I didn't love it either, but
he's skinny. He looks like skinny Predator meets like, I don't know. He looks like something from like Metroid or something. I don't know.
I didn't love it either. I don't know. Just something about it is more effective the way it's drawn, because it is true to like that 9 foot towering, just, like the way it moves, the way it behaves. And there is one frame that is just really fantastic. Yeah. Because Les Edwards takes, that famous painting, Saturn Eating His Children.
Oh yeah. By what's the guy? Francisco, right? I forget. That's a great
something
one.
Like that. Yeah. But he does that with the scene of the kid in the back of the car.
Yeah.
The kid getting his head bitten off. He adapts that painting of Saturn eating his children into, the Rawhead Rex just eating the kid's head off and tearing it from his shoulders. And it's it's so fucking brutal. But it's great. It's a great piece of art. I don't love the character design, but I don't love the one in the movie either. So I don't know.
No, it's nothing compares to the book. I haven't read the comic adaptation, but I would like to. And the I will say the comic adaptation, Predator is not a good description. It's more like a bloodier, weird looking, like less alien, more terrestrial version of like Pumpkinhead.
Yeah. It looks like Pumpkinhead if his head was actually a dickhead and he had Hulk Hogan hair. So
it's a more mammal. Imagine a mammal version of Pumpkinhead.
Yeah.
More like a dickhead with Hulk Hogan hair. Now I'm just imagining calling everybody brother. All right, dude.
Hey, brother.
Come on, brother. Listen, dude. I'm gonna eat your kids, dude. So this is like I said, a brutal story, and I will say, if I want to rank the I guess faithfulness of the movie to the story, it probably gets about a 6. Like it's okay in terms of faithfulness, but it misses some big things, and then it's just restricted by the fact that this is a somewhat low budget, kind of schlocky monster movie. But the screenplay was written by Clive Barker, so he tries to maintain as much of the elements as possible. But I got to imagine, some things were cut for time, because this is a tight hour and 29 minute movie. And the screenplay, when they originally, it probably would have been, closer to 2 hours, I imagine, with some stuff that needed to be fleshed out. But it's, some things quite faithful, other things not so much. But let's get into the movie a little bit. 1986 is when this movie came out. Like I said, it was written by Clive Barker, but it was directed by George Pavlou, who hasn't done. He's primarily known as a producer, and I think the only other one or two movies he directed were, at least one of them, if not both of them, were also Clive Barker adaptations. So not by any means a celebrated director. Definitely his career was more known as a producer. Anything, have you seen anything else jumped out at you about the director? I was like, I don't really know much about this cat.
No, it feels like just kind of one of those guys who existed in the kind of UK film system and never really made a translation over to America. So it's it's someone you may not terribly be familiar with, and like you're saying, everything else he directed seems like Clive Barker adaptations as well, which I wonder, I don't know, I didn't do enough research ahead of time. Like, I wonder if just like as a producer, was he more there like holding Clive Barker's hand in a way as a director?
Could be. To take someone with producing experience and kind of make them the director. I don't know the whole production story, but that feels like it makes sense a little bit. It might be one of those writer producer, like obviously they had an ongoing partnership, as they worked on multiple projects together. And perhaps he was a bit of a, there for consulting purposes as Clive Barker kind of got his feet under him in filmmaking. But because this came out only a couple years after the story came out, which this was in the first 3 volumes, which I think are all like 84, 85. And this came out in 86. So like this was pretty quick on the heels of the actual release of the collection where the story existed. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not sure where all that falls. Although, so Clive Barker directed The Forbidden in 78, which was like a short film that he did. And then he directs Hellraiser in 87. So like maybe there was just something about, like they needed this George Pavlou guy to take the official director's credit or something, again, hold his hand. And then by that time, Barker was ready to do Hellraiser and Nightbreed on his own. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep. As far as the cast is concerned, some familiar faces for sure. A lot of British actors, as you might imagine, very British production. Although interestingly enough, and I'm not sure why, maybe it's just the location that they had access to, the story takes place in rural England, whereas this takes place in rural Ireland.
And they changed the name of the towns too.
The name of the town, the name of the main character. Yeah, it takes place in, I think, what is it? Hawthorne is the name of the town. I have it in my notes here.
It's
Rathmore.
Oh, yeah, Rathmore.
Yeah, Rathmore in the Irish countryside. So it's a small village. So a small village setting, but in this case, Irish. And then in the story, it's a small English country town called Zeal. So again, some interesting decisions. I'm not 100% sure why that was the case. But the character, I believe in the story, and I forgot to write down, but I think his first name is Ron, whereas it's Howard in this one. I was like, is that some sort of nod to Ron Howard? I have no idea.
I don't know.
Such a strange thing to switch it to Howard. But it's played by David Dukes, who you recognize his face, but I could not place him what I knew him from. He was in Gods and Monsters in 98, A Little Romance in 79. Never saw that. But he was also in, a lot of people might know him from, he was in 7 episodes of Dawson's Creek, for a little bit more recent. that was really he also just has like a pretty, I don't mean this in a mean way, but a little bit of a generic face. He just kind of looks like a tall, handsome guy. Like he was on a TV series callalled The Mommies in the 90s. He was on 27 episodes of that. Never saw it. Sisters, another episode. He was in War and Remembrance, a TV miniseries in the 90s. He just kind of was in a lot of 90s and 80s television, primarily.
Notably, though, he is on the Stephen King Rose Red TV miniseries.
Never saw it. Yeah, there you go. Some genre fans might know him from that. So he plays Howard Hollenbeck, and then his wife Elaine is played by Kelly Piper, which many of you would probably remember from the person who is in the car with Tom Savini when Tom Savini jumps up on his own hood and blasts his head off in Maniac. So the exploding head double barrel shotgun scene from Maniac. She plays a pretty prominent role there in the film 1980s Maniac. She's also in Vice Squad. You recognize her face. She's in just an enormous amount of 80s TV and movies. Other people worth mentioning. You've got Niall Tobin, who plays Reverend Coote. Again, another very recognizable British actor of the time. Again, just nothing that I immediately was like, oh, I know him for that. But he's in a ton of stuff. British, I'm sure, any British listeners would probably know him from even more. But you see him pop up as small parts and stuff. And then the other character, which I thought did a fantastic job, Ronald Wilmot as Declan O'Brien, who plays a wild ass character in the story and is a wild character in the movie too. And then playing the monster, in this big giant suit, Heinrich von Schellendorf, which is just a hell of a name. His main credits are, of course, as the titular Rawhead in Rawhead Rex. And then he also was in a movie called Call Me Rawhead, an interview with Heinrich von Bunau. I don't know. Why is his name different in that one? It's not Schellendorf. But I think his claim to fame is he has one actor credit, and it is as Rawhead Rex and Rawhead Rex. But my God, does he have a great name? I have to Heinrich von Schellendorf. That sounds like a monster's name just by itself.
It's so funny that there was only 2 people in the UK that were, over 6'10", and he was one of them. And the other one was they tried to get Peter Mayhew, who played Chewbacca, of course.
Oh yeah,
they tried to get him, but he cost too much. You can't. Yeah. In 1986, he's still playing Chewbacca. So
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they got the other tall guy. And I will say, and this is no slight here, fine, he did a pretty crappy job of playing him. Now, this was a difficult big suit, like Steve said. It's probably he's a tall guy, and then they just put a big head on top of him, and he's got a lot of makeup, a lot of prosthetics, a lot of rubber on him, and also in the story, he's this giant, hedonistic, naked, bloody death fuck monster. And in this, he's just like a big monster, but they got to put clothes on him. Right, the idea of Rawhead Rex from the story wearing clothes is really funny. But of course, you can't have a giant naked fuck monster with a giant bloody hard dick all the time like he is in the movie. Yeah. So they try their best on this one, but he just does a lot of putting his arms up and shaking violently. Yeah,
he basically is just the ultimate warrior. He just runs around shaking his arms and yelling.
He is always, and even has kind of the hair too of the ultimate warrior.
Yeah, he has, because all his clothes are tattered the same way the ultimate warrior had those fucking leg streamers and shit. Yeah, the streamers. I always thought that he looked like a child's bicycle. You know what I mean? He's always running around with streamers from the handlebars. Yeah, it's not a great creature design. They did what they could. It's still fun and effective in some scenes for sure. And don't get me wrong, I love this movie. It's not good, but I love it.
But the book coincidentally made me like it more because I'm like, you know, because now I'm imagining this goofy rubber monster as like a giant fuck beast, you know, and I'm like, wow, it'd be real cool if it was more like the book.
Well, that's the thing. Between the book and the comic, you both get you get the psychology of Rawhead Rex. And
yeah, because you hear a lot of, you read a lot of his internal dialogue.
Right. Yeah. So you understand that he's he deems himself like the king of the land. And, you know, he thinks about himself as the ruler of these people, but he despises them for putting him in the hole. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you learn that he's just motivated by pure pleasure, and that pleasure comes from just jacking off and eating children and pissing on people, and none of it is he has no redeemable qualities, but you understand it as a type of animal.
Yeah.
You know, an intelligent animal of sorts, but it's still a type of animal.
An ancient animal beast king. Demigod, honestly,
right?
Like a demigod of a land that is purely hedonistic and naturalistic, and is here to eat and fuck and dominate the other living beings of this area. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think pretty commonly, Rex refers to humans as mites. So he has thoughts about humanities, and he views them as, you know, lesser than. He sees them as mites.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not that he's brainless. It's just he doesn't have language, and he doesn't care to communicate with us either, because he views us as lesser. Whereas
he is the alpha predator, and we are just there to be used as his prey, and you know, to impregnate and rip apart and eat and whatever he wants to do. Just wreak havoc on. Right.
Whereas in the film, though, he is just a yelling, screaming monster, because you never get any of that psychology. So it's just it's just a yelling, screaming thing. Let's avoid that. Let's go around it.
Yeah. You don't get in the story. The story as well, you get a lot of internal monologue written by a ton of different characters. There isn't, I mean, yes, Ron, and he would play the character of the Howard character in the movie. He's kind of the primary protagonist that we're kind of with as the story unfolds. But you have whole sections where, you know, multiple characters, you're hearing their internal dialogue that ultimately end up dying, right, at the hands of Rawhead Rex. And then you get a ton of the internal dialogue of the monster itself, which is really, really cool, which doesn't make it less scary when you are from the perspective of when we'll talk about some of these scenes. I'm getting ahead of myself, but when you start out the film, the music rules, the art rules, the title screen rules, everything about the beginning of this movie fucking rules. And I feel like that's part of the reason why that, and just some really bonkers moments, I think, really make it so it's set up for cult fanhood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's got a fast start. It moves quick. It's got a crazy monster. It's got bonkers shit that is not explained, like him pissing on people. In the book, that's kind of it's still shocking in the book, but it's explained a little bit more. Or you understand it because you understand the monster's psychology more. In this movie, you're just like, why is he pissing on him?
Why is he pissing on that dude? It also comes in a different order as well.
It does. Everything's all kind of shuffled up in the screenplay.
Yeah. Yeah. So the pissing happens pretty early in the story.
Yeah.
You go, oh, okay. But then he does worse stuff later, and then it that makes more sense now as to why he's just such a, you know, a misanthrope of the highest order, because he's not even a human. He's just a misanthrope of all things.
Yeah, exactly. But in this movie, it just really comes out of left field. I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, why is he pissing on him?
Why is he pissing on that dude?
It's fun. We'll get to it. Anyway, so they're in this Irish. So I'm going to stick to the movie, obviously, talking about the plot points in the movie, and then we'll talk about where it differs, and then in the story, and then Steve is going to kind of talk about where it differs or what elements get integrated from the comic book too. But so again, Irish country. Are they English? Is an English town or Irish town in the comic book?
Yeah, no, it's Zeal. Like I said, it's
Zeal. Same.
It's pretty close. Like I'm pretty sure the comic adaptation is from 91, 92. So it's still, again, it's pretty close to when the first story was published.
Gotcha. But it starts out similar, right? You've got these kind of like rural farmer types. In the book, it's more just this one guy. In this instance, it's like him and his buddies, and they've got this big, and it's just more of like a big rock in the book. But in this story, it's more of like a big stone totem. Yeah, I was gonna say a pillar, but yeah, it looks like a big stone ritualistic totem type of thing. Whereas in the story, it's just a big old dang rock that's out in this farmer's field. But he wants rid of it, and he can't get rid of it. It's stuck so deep in the ground. It's such a big heavy rock, can't get rid of it. So they're kind of jumping back and forth in the movie here, but you get to Howard and his family, and they're traveling around this countryside because he's like kind of an anthropologist type / author, and he's like researching all these old historical, whether it be Neolithic or certainly pre-industrialized like religions and like ancient European religions and belief systems and old church manuscripts and iconography and churches and stuff like that. And he's smoking in his minivan with his family as one is, as God intended. And they go on into town, and they've been traveling for some time now, like a month and a half throughout Ireland. The family's starting to get a little bit bored. This is kind of like a working vacation for Howard, I would say. And he goes into this church, and there's just the sickest stained glass window you've ever seen in a church. It's just a big fucking red-eyed monster being held down by a post. And like everyone just acts like it's totally normal. And no one has ever made the connection between that and the big giant stone post that's in a nearby farmer's field. You're like, wait, yeah, it's pretty easy to put two and two together. There is nothing about this in the book, like the whole stained glass window and stuff. None of this is in the story. So
this is very an invention of the film.
Yeah,
because in the story you get and this is why the story is better. Of course, the story is better, but this is why it's better is like you get this concept that the town of Zeal is like it's the older population is dying, and you have a bunch of new people coming in gentrifying it. So like the character we're following in the film isn't he isn't an anthropologist. He's actually like just a rich dude who bought up some space in town. And like he's is moving his family to this town. So like
there's a lot of stuff about the gentrification, and there's still the weird old like Lovecraftian locals that still kind of abide by the old belief systems a little bit, or at least remember the old belief systems, but all the new people are allowing them to be forgotten.
Yeah. So like what's happening in the film wouldn't actually happen in the story, because what's happening in the film is like you have all of these clues and markers of like, hey, that's the big giant totem that we keep the monster under. Don't pick that up. Like,
don't do it. I mean, it shows on the thing. It's like, it might as well be like a raising of the totem with a circle and an X through it. Like, don't do it.
No.
No totem moving.
But in the story, the idea is because the older generation is dying off, you lose those stories. That knowledge, yeah. Yeah, and then the farmer, like he can barely remember what his dad told him about not tilling this field. So then he tills the field, clears the grass, and then he finds the rock. But he can't even remember because his dad is now dead and he's old himself. So then he just goes, I got to get this fucking rock up so I can till this field.
Well, and also there's an element of greed too, where it's like now the town is worth money and the land is worth money. And he's thinking to himself, why am I going to leave this field, unplanted? I can't afford to do that. There's probably a reason why it was for a long time, but I don't care, because all I care about is making it, making more money, kind of thing.
Right.
So there's a little bit of that materialistic, money loving element of it. But anyway, back to the movie. His buddies give up and they bail, and then snapping back over to Howard and his family. He's in the church. He's taking photos in the church. He's chatting, outside, and like his family's there. So it's like he has his wife and then his son and daughter. His son's probably, I don't know, 10, 12, and maybe something like that. And then his daughter looks like she's maybe like 4 or 5, I'll say. He's taking pictures of the church, and it's creepy, and they're like, we're bored, come on, whatever. And then the storm starts rolling in, and then back to the field, the farmer stabs, like, he's not going to give up, and he stabs the ground one more time, and all this like gas releases and starts to like hiss out from under the ground. Stinky gas comes out, basically. And then the whole thing starts to wobble, but then simultaneously, like, people in the church are like singing. And then the farmer gets like struck by lightning, and then the church is also struck by lightning. And then like a woman who's like touching something on the altar gets like burned, and then the whole stone topples. And then the stained glass window has like glowing red eyes, just like the monster has glowing red eyes. And then motherfucking Rawhead Rex explodes out of a hole. Like, it all just happens so fast. Whereas there's this big tension build up in the book, and in this instance it's just like motherfucking Rawhead Rex, like his entrance music plays, the Ultimate Warrior's entrance music starts playing, and he blasts out of the hole. Just sprints full speed down the ramp. So coked out of his brain. You see his pupils are so dilated.
Yeah, they're dilated and they're red constantly. Like, you have to imagine like there's actually a tunnel system underneath this farm, and that he's sprinting down that tunnel so he can hit the ramp and bust up out from the bottom.
Yeah, he is. He's the Ultimate Warrior and just like the Ultimate Warrior, he has very limited mobility. He sucks in the ring, but he's just all looks. He's all bark and no bite.
All looks and all energy.
Yeah, but literally can't wrestle his way out of a paper bag. He just screams at people and bites their necks. Howard goes in and meets who's my favorite character in this, and probably one of the weird, creepy characters in the story too, is Declan O'Brien. I don't think his name is Declan in the story, I believe, but I don't know if you ever get a last name. I forget. Is it Declan? It's something similar to that in the story.
No, it is Declan. I'm pretty sure they just call him. They also call him like Egghead and Eggface. Yeah, a lot of the time, because he's just like this. He's just this weird bald dude. Yeah. So yeah, he's like I think he. I don't know this term as it applies to religion, but he's the verger.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I took it as like a deacon kind of.
Yeah.
That's what I took it. So like, he's not the priest. He's like the priest's assistant.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
he cleans up. He cleans up all the cum and stuff afterwards. He's a mop boy. He's a mop boy.
He gets all the cum out the back.
Yeah.
He's the one that mails the payoff checks.
Yeah. He mails the checks. He mops up the jizz. Yeah.
He sits in the cuck chair with the video camera.
Cuck chair. It translates to verger. Actually, is an old European word for cuck chair. Yeah.
He very clearly doesn't have the like the collar on.
Right.
So like he has So he wears like kind of the vestments, but not the collar. So he's not a full priest or anything like that.
Yeah. So the guy who's kind of the full priest, I think, is like a reverend or whatever, I don't know, is Coot. He goes by Coot, which in the book, when I was reading it, I could not help but picturing Cooter from the Dukes of Hazzard.
Dukes of Hazzard. Oh, yeah.
I couldn't think of anybody but Cooter from Dukes of Hazzard the whole time. Declan is a creepy fuck, not friendly. Basically says, go to the rectory. That's where you'll find Coot. So Declan then touches the altar and gets zapped. And that doesn't happen in the book either. The altar plays a smaller role. It does play a role in the book, but plays a smaller role. Nobody gets fucking electrified or burned or whatever on the altar in the book. But he touches it and gets zapped and immediately becomes like brain controlled by Rawhead. And he doesn't know what's happening, but he knows Rawhead is like calling to him and communicating with some like ancient evil is communicating to him. And now Declan is like, you know, getting lured into the world of being basically like Rawhead's familiar, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then Coot does meet Howard. They go and chat about like sacred sites and shit like that. And then Howard is staying at the Tall Man, which there's a little bit more about that. Like there's a little bit more backstory about the like local gathering place and how it's changed with all the gentrification in the story, but not a lot in it in the movie adaptation. There's a little bit of tension with the family. Like I said, they're getting bored. They want to go home. They're getting restless, like, you know, kind of held up in the Tall Man while Howard is out doing his pictures and is learning about his spooky ookies and stuff. You would think, because this is a short story, like I said, I don't remember. I want to say let's say it's around 60 pages, maybe a little bit more. And you would see that's like a good, so sometimes when it's a full length book, the movie really has to speed up to hit the major plot points and it feels a little overstuffed. But if it's a really, really short story, like The Mist, like you have a lot of room to like flesh things out. This feels like it should be a good length story to translate to a script. Mm-hmm. But it's not paced very well. For saying that, it really feels like you're rushing. It feels very rushed at times, I'll say.
Yeah. It's not paced very well. And again, because so much of this is internalized stuff, that's generally considered like it's one of the first things you learn when you're like writing screenplays is don't write unfilmable stuff. And unfilmable stuff is 90%, you know, what they mean by that is internalized stuff, like things you can't you can't tell a character's thoughts or motivations by what's in their brain. So you have to write it. You have to find ways to write it in the dialogue and in the action, but you can't just write in the screenplay. And it's like, Declan was upset because, you know, this and that, or, you know, the town was falling on hard times because of this and this, and it made this people upset. And it's like, no, you just say it's a dilapidated town that's being gentrified. There's a new Starbucks on the corner. Like you can paint it in a different way, but you're just not supposed to do it in like a narrative, like internalized monologue way.
Yeah, that's well put, because that explains really why, you know, as somebody who has no idea how to write a screenplay, it's like, oh, this is a pretty good size length story. But yeah, you're right. Of the, let's say 60 pages, like 40 pages of it are internal dialogue. So like, it's not anything you can put on screen. So if you really think about it, there's not a ton to put on screen. Obviously the story wasn't written with creating a screenplay in mind. But anyway, so we do get over to another instance in the story where you really kind of get this, like, a lot of internal dialogue, and really you are from the perspective of this couple for a while. And one of the more harrowing scenes in the movie, or in the book, or in the story rather, you have Dennis and you have his pregnant wife Jenny, and you learn, you know, they're hanging around the old farm, whatever, and then you get this all of a sudden this thing of like, the barn door is open, and you know, there's a little bit more, there's a lot more build up and tension in the story. But in this instance, Dennis goes, oh, I got to go check it out. Goes out there. You do get this kind of cool alternating scene as Dennis is going out, sees the barn door has been broken. He knows there's probably some sort of intruder in there. He's scared, and simultaneously his pregnant wife is in the kitchen, and she's like cutting up meat, and they keep going back and forth. So it's kind of a fun little back and forth shot. Yeah. And then ultimately, as you might imagine, Dennis gets Rawhead busts out Ultimate Warrior style through some crates, just like rawr. He basically does that thing that the kids, the bullies in A Christmas Story, I don't know why I always end up referencing A Christmas Story, do, where they just like to scare the other kids, they just put their arms up and go, "Rawr!" And that's what Rawhead does. Yeah. But he busts out of a bunch of like, I don't know if they're apple crates or something. And Dennis is like, "God damn!" And then he chases Dennis out, and munches his head, which is in the book. This is why you couldn't really put this on screen. This is why it's such a hard thing to film. Is the way that Rawhead kills people in the story is always very brutal, and it's like he's toying with them, like he's playing with their body. Like one guy in the story, which they don't do it in the movie, he just like picks him up by his feet and just rips his dick off. Just like, hey, look, a little yummy. Rips his dick off. I'm gonna eat that as a little snack later. Whereas in the comic,
he picks him up and like he tickles his dick with his finger, and then just goes yoink, and then walks off. Like he just leaves him there like that.
Yeah, with his dick hanging off. So it's very brutal. It's very like you have absolutely no regard for humankind. And in the movie, he just kind of goes up and you just see his big rubbery face and his big giant teeth, and he just like kind of does like a zombie throat rip a lot of times or face rip on a lot of these villagers, whereas in the story he's just decimating people. He actually, in the story, they kind of describe something he does quite often is like the most intense version of like a tombstone pile driver, where he just like holds people by their feet upside down and just smashes them headlong into the ground, just like destroying their spine. Like he just goes around tombstoning people everywhere.
He goes around,
he drives them into the ground. Yeah, planting people. Yeah, that's what they call it. I will say I do love that this isn't like picturesque Ireland, and they don't. This is like grimy rural Ireland. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they don't show any of the gentrification stuff that's in the story. That it's like a cute little charming town. It's like a grimy little Irish hamlets, basically.
Yeah, with a trailer park.
Yeah, with like a traveler's caravan right outside of town. You know, so imagine the movie Snatch, right? And when they go out to the outskirts of town and you see the traveler's caravan, which is essentially a little mobile trailer park, right? Where you know, I think the term gypsies is like derogatory. I think they refer to themselves as like traveling families, if I'm not mistaken, or Romani or something. Like they refer to themselves as like their heritage, or one of them might be derogatory. I don't know.
Well, gypsy is technically derogatory, but not everybody who travels in like the Irish setting is Romani. So that's most of people you would consider travelers. But like I think Irish have a lot of non-Romani, and then I've been told I can be wrong about this, but like because of my Hungarian heritage, I've been told like also there's a lot of non-Romani Hungarian travelers as well.
Okay. So. Yeah. So it's just like, you know, this like tight knit community of like I said, traveling families, they call them, which are just, they live typically in like mobile homes and like, you know, live in like almost a little like trailer park outside of town. In this instance, close to like this wooded area. So that Rawhead like feels this his territory, you know, or I guess all this area is his territory. But so Rawhead busts out and fucks up Jenny, like we said, Dennis, and then Jenny hides, and Rawhead just goes in and treats her kitchen like the wet bandits in Home Alone treat just like the neighbor's house. They're just like, he's just messing stuff up on purpose. Whereas in the book, he has a singular mindset, which is to like, I'm going to kill this person and eat them. Right. Yeah. But in this movie, he's just like going around knocking shit off the shelves and breaking plates and stuff. And I'm like, this is dumb, but
yeah, we can't show him killing too many kids. So what should he do otherwise? Yeah. Vandalism, we guess.
Yeah. In the story, there's a lot of talk, internal monologue from Rawhead Rex that not only does he like to kill and eat people, he very much prefers children and specifically babies. Yeah. Like the most delicious succulent meat is babies. Like, that's the Weisswurst that Steve's going to be having. That's his Weisswurst.
Hell
right?
yeah,
His babies.
dude. Hell yeah.
So Rawhead is like stalking into the room to, I believe in the story, he like, isn't he kills her and eats. Does he eat the fetus? Doesn't he eat the baby in this one? Or no? What happens in the story in this part?
That in the comic,
I'm trying to remember
done,
what happens in the story.
Well, yeah, in the comic, it's done that it's she isn't pregnant. She just has a daughter that's alive.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, she's not pregnant in the story.
Yeah, but she's on her period, which
Yes,
is
that's
why
right.
he leaves her alone. But he does inadvertently kill her.
Yeah,
he inadvertently kills her because he busts through the second floor window, grabs the kid, and then that causes her to fall down the stairs and break her
same
neck.
thing in the story, and it's a super brutal scene in the story too, because he leaves her alone because this is when you start to get the whole story behind. The only thing that like deters Rawhead at all is like, really we ultimately learn is like some sort of like feminine energy, but in this instance he will kill, but he doesn't typically likes to leave alone and will not eat women who on their quote unquote moon cycle. So that's what they call it in the story. But yeah, he does ultimately take the kid and like, yeah, the kid's neck is like snapped basically as he like whips her down the stairs. It's a pretty brutal scene, but anyway, in this instance, he leaves the pregnant Jenny alone. In the story, everything is much more like primitive, sexual, nasty, and in this, it's certainly more tame. I would say like a theme, and this isn't just in the story, but Clive Barker, like one of the themes he always likes to portray is that we are these like primitive, dumb animals just underneath the facade of polite culture or polite society, but right underneath all this prim and proper, especially British culture, we are driven by, sex and hunger and control and instinct. And, we're all just basically slightly more evolved fuck monsters. But, that's a big theme in the story and doesn't come through quite as much in the movie. You'd only get all of Clive Barker's stories are super horny, like 90% of them. Even when they don't make sense to be, he always has to inject like some naughty horniness. There's not a lot of that in this movie at all, besides just like the husband and wife just doing some like dirty kissing on the street and like suggesting that they're going to have marital relations. Like it's pretty mild in that capacity.
Yeah. You do see some trailer park boobs at one point, and that's it.
You do, and it's very forced, and I don't know why it's there. Just because it's the 80s and a horror movie, people would ask for their money back if they didn't see any boobs, I think.
Right, yeah.
So this cop shows up at Dennis and Jenny's farm and finds the house all fucked up, and Dennis is dead. No, they don't find Dennis. Rawhead has dragged him away, but he finds Jenny, and she is just like, I don't know, whacked out. She's just like has whacked out poo brains and is like laughing and crying now. It's
her mind
pretty confusing
broken.
and dumb. Yeah, like, and the scene where Rawhead moves into the house and like grabs her, you're like, oh, this is gonna be sick. Either he's gonna like eat her, rip her fetus out, or kill her, or do something. And no, he just comes in and is like, ew, no, you're pregnant. And then just, I guess, leaves. It's
yeah.
So the whole like the cops from town combined with like, some big city coppers, some like detectives show up to try to sort everything out. Meanwhile, Rawhead's off, dragging Dennis's body into the woods. We cut to, the travelers camp, and you have this young couple, and I'm going to say they're like late teenage, early 20s kind of thing. And they've got this like younger boy, like maybe he's like 12 or something. And you get the idea he's like probably one of their younger brothers, and they're kind of babysitting him. And of course they're in like this little mobile home, so they don't really have any privacy, and they're like making out and shit. And the kid is like refusing to give them any privacy. So they get all pissed off. and they go out in the woods, to make fuck in the woods somewhere.
Yeah.
Andy, the boyfriend, who's a total dickhead, like locks the kid in and like takes his toy and is like really rapey and just like generally kind of sucks. So you're like, this dude's definitely getting eaten for sure.
Right. Yeah. This is an instance where, again, they're movifying things of making a character like deserve a death. Whereas like most of the people in the story they just get it for being alive and near Rex. Whereas
he wants to kill. He lives to kill, and you don't have to do anything. In fact, the more like innocent you probably are, the more he's into it. If
you're a person who smokes and drinks, like your blood actually probably tastes worse to him. It probably bums him out. So like,
he wants literal babies to eat.
Right.
But in this, he's kind of a pseudo serial killer. They always turn him into a slasher villain in this movie a little bit.
I do like in this scene though, it's almost a reverse of like common trope where, because Andy locks Neil in the trailer, and then Rawhead is stalking around outside of the trailer, but Neil is trying to bust out to go get his toy. Like it's a reverse of the normal horror trope of like being locked in a house and trying to bust your way out to get away from the killer. Neil is literally almost busting into his own death. Yeah.
Yeah, he does. And again, you think that the kid's going to get it. Spoiler alert, he doesn't get it. But Andy does. So it's Andy and Katrina. They're out in the woods. Like I said, Andy's being real pushy and rapey. The kid gets out and sees Rawhead first with Dennis, the previous guy's body in the woods. He's kind of got him strung up and is like, eating him or whatever. And the kid goes and alerts this other older couple. And I wanted this guy's beer. Like, I was just like, he's got like the English pub glass. He's like probably drinking a nice bitter in his camper. it just felt very cozy. Anyway, all the traveling folks all gather because they alert everybody like, hey, something happened to this kid. The kid's like too scared to talk. Then the couple, Andy and Katrina, they stumble upon Dennis's body in the woods and run. But they're running and Rawhead like, gotcha, jumps out of the woods. And then Katrina keeps running. She gets through the woods to all the traveler folk that are standing there. They're like, what happened? And she's like, Andy. And she turns and she's just holding Andy's hand, like severed hand in her hand, which is, again, that doesn't happen in the story.
No.
It's kind of it's a fun little scene. She's just holding a hand.
Yeah, it's a fun little gag, but this is all very movified.
They're straying away from the story pretty significantly, frankly, at this point. But it's very difficult to communicate the stuff in the story, like we said. So Howard, this scene is great in the story, and I can't remember if it's Coot or Howard at this point. I think they're like kind of mixing around timelines, but there's a scene that is pretty silly in the story, but the scene that it corresponds with, in the movie, that is the scene that it corresponds with in the story is awesome. But Howard sees Rawhead like from a distance, just like up on the hill, and then he's gone, and now he's spooked. He's like, I saw something, it's a big old scary monster. Meanwhile, all the traveler folks are searching the woods for this, whatever this thing is. There's a big scene in the story where like Rawhead like learns about gasoline, where he like smashes this car up, and they kind of do it later with like cops. But one of the things that he does in the story is basically like ambush people on the road driving in their car, like just smash up their car and flip it over and rip them out of the car and shit. And before he was buried underground by humans, like he knew fire was a thing. Like he used fire to keep warm, and he, killed people with fire, and he burned basically what he did it for is he burned the corpses of his victims. Was like a big thing he did back in the olden days. But now he's discovered
back when
accelerants.
It's fashionable.
Yeah. Now he's discovered accelerants. So now he accidentally discovers gasoline and that it's flammable. by smashing up this car in the book. This is a bigger part of the story in the book because he's like, ooh, this is a new weapon that I have to terrorize humans. Is gasoline rules. Like I can set fires and explode people with gasoline.
It also shows how he's kind of dumb to the world. Like he's even though he is refers to himself as the king and all that shit. Like he's also just a kind of a dumb animal because he views cars as another type of animal.
Yes, that's a good point. There's a whole thing about how he sees these cars and is like, I know I'm gonna have to fight one of those eventually, and then he gets his nerve up and he goes and fights a car, and then when he kills the car, he quote unquote kills the car, he opens up the car and finds a human inside, and they're like, he's like, the internal dialogue in the story is like, these cars can't be that tough if they let these stupid humans control them. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how
it takes all the fear away from him.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not scared of cars anymore because humans control them. They can't be that powerful.
I'm not afraid anymore.
I'm not afraid anymore. Did you hear that? So they find Andy all tore up and his head's gone. And you're like, oh, cool. All right. And then Rawhead's just posing on top of a hill with Andy's head. He loves carrying heads around, which is pretty sick. The cops find the farmer from the original place that's dead with the stone pillar out in his field. So now all these murders are mounting up. They're like, goddamn, what's happening? Howard goes to the police station. There's lots of activity, right? He tells them about the monster he saw, and basically they tell him to go fuck off. And some of my favorite interactions are between the cops and Howard. They get better as we go on, but he's just saying, hey guys, I saw something. I kind of get the feeling something weird's going on in this town. And they're like, nah, dog, get fucked. And to be fair, he's not very convincing at all. He's just very like British. And he's just like, well, he's not British. They're American, by the way, traveling in Ireland, which in the story, they're all English. Howard, he just gets frustrated and leaves. One cop kind of wants to hear him out, but the other cop isn't having it. And he's like, maybe we should listen to him. And then the cop just throws his cigar and the other one's coffee, which is just a great little scene. I love the cops in this movie. Howard goes to talk to Coot again, and Declan is lurking around. And Howard is trying to translate the window that says, like, don't let monsters out from underneath the stone or whatever.
Yeah.
and then Declan crushes Howard's camera and Howard roughs him up and he's like, dick. He's just like stomps his camera. Yeah. He's like, you fucking jerk. It's just like, it's such a fun interaction because Declan is just escalating and everyone's so like prim and proper. And he just like roughs him up. He's like, I'm gonna smash you, kind of thing or whatever. Just British fights are so great. I love it because everyone's like doesn't want to curse,
Yeah.
So Howard and his family are in a good mood now. It's time. Hey, this is too. Let's just get the hell out of here. We're gonna pack up. We're gonna check out the next day. They're headed to Dublin. The whole family's excited to go to Dublin. And
they have McDonald's in Dublin.
They do. They talk about the McDonald's in Dublin. They got a sick van. And Howard's wife ends up, she sees something in a field. She thinks it's a monster. They go back. No, it's just the most horrifying scarecrow in the fucking world. Like unnecessarily human, giant, scary scarecrow. Which is silly. I'm like, why did that need to be there? But I get it. Yeah. There's a lot of redirects in the scene. And I remember this is one of the only scenes I remembered from when I watched the movie the first time. And it is fairly, the way it plays out is quite accurate to the story, but nowhere near as brutal. No. This is the most shocking moment in the story. And it is in the movie too, but it's just, it just pales in comparison. So, snap back over, the traveling boy ended up drawing a picture of Rawhead Rex for the cops because he couldn't talk. And they're like, well, maybe it is a monster. And I'm like, so the testimony of like a well-educated, sound of mind, seemingly adult doesn't warrant any consideration. But if a dumb kid draws a drawing of a monster, you're like, oh no, it's a monster. Doesn't make any fucking sense. So they're getting ready to go out. They're just leaving town in their van. They're all having a good time, joking around. And the daughter, who, like I said, is 4, 5, she's got to pee. And there's nowhere to stop. They're in the middle of nowhere. So let's just stop on the side of the road. And this is that infamous scene. And like I said, the best part of the story, it's this great redirection because Howard takes his daughter to go pee behind this bush. And he's like, go over there. And she's like a little girl and she's like shy. And also it's like this weird, creepy thing that like Clive Barker always has with, like, Clive Barker has like a peeing thing. You know, it's like if Quentin Tarantino has a feet thing, Clive Barker has a pissing thing.
Sure.
I've just picked up on that. And the little girl's like, don't watch me. And he's like, ha ha ha, like, that's cute. But it's also, like I said, it's in the book, it's a little creepy. Anyway, she goes to pee behind the bush and he can't see her. And you're like, that little girl is getting eaten for sure. And then all of a sudden you hear her scream and you're like, fuck, she's getting eaten. Howard runs over. He's like behind this fence. He's got to run over. And the mom jumps out of the car, hears the scream, runs. And you're like, this girl's definitely getting eaten or taken at least. And then they're going to have to go save her or whatever. No, she just seen like there's like a dead animal behind the bush and it scares her. So no, that was fine. It was just a little bit of a false alarm there. Meanwhile, like, I'm going to say like 50 feet away, maybe 60 feet away, something like that. The son is sitting in the back seat reading a comic book, and Rawhead Rex just like comes leering over, looking through the window. The son sees it. There's a whole in the book, if I remember in the story, you're kind of experiencing it from the kid's perspective. Mm-hmm. Of the kid being like confused and scared and trying to like hide on the other side of the car. But Rawhead gets in there and essentially just like literally going towards his giant maw of teeth. And in the story, it's extremely graphic where they turn just in time, see this 9-foot tall monster holding up their kid. And like you said, it's very reminiscent in the story. I didn't make of the Saturn eating his son painting, because he literally like munches off the top of his head is kind of the way it's described. Just bites his damn head in half like you would a freaking chocolate bunny on Easter. So it's super graphic. And then of course, the parents watch it happen. Super brutal. In the movie, it's just like, oh, it almost happens off screen. I mean, not almost, it does happen off screen.
Yeah, it happens off screen. Like it's probably in the story because, like I said, I think the comic it seems pretty faithful from the points we've been touching on as we've talked. But the comic even goes as far as to describe the fact that the kid like throws up in Rawhead's mouth as his head is bitten off. So like it's just full on like just terrible, disgusting, gross, and like the splash page is fucking gross. And all you have is like Ron, screaming as Rex looks at him with a mouthful of like kid flesh. So it is like you have to read the comic. It is so much better than the film. I'm sorry, it just is. But
no, the film all you see is like there's blood everywhere. Yeah, and Howard screaming and crying. Yeah,
this scene also, it just, aside from everything kind of happening off screen, it's edited in a way that just I found annoying and like kind of toothless in a way.
Yeah.
Cause like once you see what's going to happen, they keep giving you these little, like, Rex is already on the scene of the car and you see Howard keep looking back to the car. And he doesn't see Rex. And that just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right that he doesn't see Rex when he looks back, even though Rex is already there. Because if Rex is supposed to be this 9-foot monster, you just want to be able to hide. I don't know. Yeah. It just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, it's a little bit of like I said, visual misdirect in this. And whereas in the story, if I remember, it comes across as he looks over, he sees him, and he's like not really for a moment processing what he's seeing, because it doesn't make sense. And then there's a moment of being like frozen in fear while he should be running to help. There's like a big feeling of helplessness in the story of like him being frozen in fear, but also what is he going to do against a 9-foot ancient monster? And then has to, of course, witness, you know, his son's like super gruesome death. So it's a super impactful part in the story. It's probably the most impactful part in the movie too, but it just pales in comparison overall.
Yeah, it almost would be really, really effective in the movie too, because if it was just done a little bit better, because this is all occurring in the middle of the day when you
I should mention it is broad. It's like 11 o'clock in the morning or early afternoon or something.
Which every other instance, at least, you know, in the story and comic, it's either done under the cover of storm or under the cover of night that Rex has killed people. And then like there's even scenes of like Rex just laying out in a field enjoying a body under the starlight because he's a fucking pervert, you know. But this is, you know, right in the middle of the day and just signals like, oh, you're never safe ever from this fucking, you know, abomination. Yeah,
that doesn't get communicated too well in the story, but the movie, like I said, doesn't really show anything in this, and it would have been hard because it's just this like rubber jawed mask that opens and has teeth, and then also weirdly has like another mouth inside its mouth, which I think they were trying to communicate in the story, that they explain it as it almost has like 2 sets of teeth, I believe. I'm trying to remember, but it has like a lot of teeth. It's this giant alpha predator, and they try to make it doesn't really work in the movie because it just looks like almost like has a little alien, like the movie Alien, mouth inside the mouth. So that part doesn't really work, and I wonder if they just kind of tried to edit as many parts of the movie out as that had as it could, because I don't even remember that from the first time I watched the movie. And it's one of those things you look at and you're like, why did they do that? And now that I've read the story, it's because of the way it's described in the story. But this is when the scenes with the cops really heat up at this point. I love it. Heat up. That's a pun for what's going to happen later. Not on purpose. So anyway, they go back to the cops, and there's a big argument because obviously Howard's pretty pissed now because, you know, his kid got munched up. And he's giving them the business, but it's still this level of like British restraint that's happening. It's kind of alarming still and off-putting that his son's dead and it's kind of their fault, but he's just like, you should do your job. You know what I mean? It's like, I think I would be in there with an axe, just like decapitating people. but meanwhile, he's just like, how dare you? You know, he's not British, but.
The fact that the scene doesn't start with him just screaming at the top of his lungs is, you know, like that restraint, because it feels like he should just be yelling instantly yelling, and like nobody can calm him down.
You get the idea he's been there a little while and he's been trying to help and he's just now getting frustrated, you know? Yeah. And it's like, but yeah, Howard goes back to the church because he's got to figure this out. You know, he's got to get revenge or whatever. So he goes out. Declan is there and he's talking shit. You know, and Coot comes in and Declan leaves. Howard, you know, figures out some shit about the stained glass and the pagan origins of the church and yada, yada. We're ahead of the characters at this point, and most of the stuff doesn't happen in the story. It's just talking about the stained glass windows and shards of it being used in other windows, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. And again, it's all being written into the script. None of this is in the original story. But Coot does touch the altar and gets burned. And then he gives a straight up Benny Hill look at the camera. He just looks at the camera, and you know that thing where like Benny Hill realizes he has an opportunity to do something naughty, and he kind of does that like blank face, turns into like kind of a grimace, smile, big-eyed thing. Coot does that to the camera almost. It's so weird.
The guy playing Coot, I don't know if I think the guys playing Coot and Declan are good actors or bad actors. I think they're bad actors.
I think the Coot guy is. Declan is a little bit better. And he delivers some wacky lines later. But yeah, they're making a lot of bold decisions. I will give them that.
That's what it is. It's bold decisions. I'm gonna go with Coot is definitely a bad actor simply because later, during the baptism scene, as it were,
yeah,
the way he runs away is the silliest run that I've ever seen on film.
It's like an old man who hasn't run in 40 years trying to remember how to run.
Yeah, it's like for all the things that you should know how to do, like as an actor, and like you read your script and you go, okay, it says I run away. I don't know. Have I run in the past 40 years? Nah, I got that. It's running. It should be easy.
I shouldn't have to sit down and I shouldn't have to practice running.
Right. But no, he should have taken a day or two.
He should have. Yeah, he should have worked on that. So meanwhile, going back over to the caravan, Rawhead's lurking around the caravan again, and you get this scene where he's all this stuff with the caravan, by the way, like this stuff is just not in the story. He's rocking this. He just all of a sudden they're in there chatting about, and the old guy's telling the story about what he saw, and he's basically trying to like kind of be gossipy, but also like kind of spook his neighbors a little bit. And they're sitting there chatting, drinking, whatever. And then all of a sudden, Rawhead just walks by one of the windows of the trailer, and they're like, "What the fuck is that?" And then he just starts rocking the whole thing and flips it over. And it just, again, the Ultimate Warrior comparison, it just reminds me of like a backstage scene that would have happened, you know, on like a maybe a little later than Warrior was on there. Like maybe it would have been like a more of an Attitude Era thing, but it just reminds me of a backstage scene that would have happened. Maybe with Stone Cold or somebody like fucking up somebody's car.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, it would have been like a WCW Warrior. You know, so yeah. So like, I'm pretty sure you can find backstage of like the Warrior doing bullshit backstage, and like there's also like the famous one where Kevin Nash throws Rey Mysterio into a trailer like head first as a lawn dart. That's always the famous one.
Yeah. So he flips it over. And he roars, eats the old guy's face off, just starts jacking people up at this point. He's just two-hand choking people and slamming them against the trailers like it's the turnbuckle. And then they start shooting him. He's just throttling people. Whereas the real monster would just literally rip people's heads off. Like just rip their heads off, rip their dicks off, split them in half. But he's just throttling people like he's freaking Boston Strangler. But there's blood like shooting out of their eyes. It's just chaos. The caravan is just chaos. They start shooting him with like rifles. It's just all hell's broke loose a little bit here. And I hoped more of this would happen in the village, but spoiler alert, it does not.
That's a budget thing for sure.
For sure. Yes. As is the car issue. I mean, they do a car thing later, but like him just dismantling a car, like that would have been impossible. Really, really difficult to fake here. Mm-hmm. The cops get a call that he's at the caravan. So they all run out there and it's like a war zone. There's bodies everywhere. There's a fucking explosion. And they're like, oh, he went down to the village, and Howard starts to figure out that there is some object that might be able to stop Rawhead. He's starting to make some connections here about the shit he's reading and the stained glass windows telling a story or whatever. The cops and this is the scene that happens earlier in the book where he ambushes people on the road. But in this instance, he ambushes the cops on their way back to town. And the main cop gets hypnotized by Rawhead. And I don't remember the order in the story, but he does this obviously to Declan and to other people in the story. But you hear a lot about Rawhead's inner monologue, so it doesn't land in the same way in the movie here.
Yeah, especially here. It feels like a late stage. He has another power. Like he just gets a power where like
he picks him up, holds him up, stares in his eye, and hypnotizes him with his red eyes.
Yeah. Whereas like Declan, we assume it's because like the connection to the altar or whatever. And in the story, it feels more like Declan was offered the information. He was given the secret knowledge and
forbidden. Yes.
Yeah. And he makes the choice to go to Rawhead's side. Whereas Coot was given the same kind of thing, and he refused Rawhead. So it's like it's a split between the two of them.
Yeah, he kind of offers this up to both of them in the story, whereas in this movie, he just picks people up and looks in their eyes, and does some magic, and that's it.
Right. He just has a power. He has a new power, I guess.
Yeah. This is one of my favorite exchanges in the movie. Officer Conroy, which is, I get the feeling, is one of the local cops. He won't let Howard go see the main cop, which the main cop we know now has been hypnotized by Rawhead. And he's like, I'll let you, you could see him when he's ready for you to see him or whatever. He goes, in the meantime, can I get you a cup of tea? And he goes, why don't you go fuck yourself?
That's a good line read. That's a good one.
Why don't you go fuck yourself? Declan goes and meets Rawhead in the woods, and like Coot walks out and sees Rawhead and Declan there, like kind of in the distance. And this is one of the most like shocking, confusing, gross, weird, awesome, scenes in the story. And it happens way earlier in the story where Rawhead and it's an animalistic thing. They don't really suggest that it's sexual. It's more of like a dominance / marking your territory kind of instinctual thing where he just pisses on people. He just has, and they really go into great detail to explain how disgusting his piss is in the story. Yeah. And how much it stinks and how gross it is. And he just pisses all over people's faces. And they're just like, because they worship him, because he's under their spell, they're like, yes, I'm so lucky to be pissed on. So again, it's like for them kind of, it's not explicitly sexual, but there's a lot of sexual undertones and a lot of just like allowing yourself to be dominating and giving into this demigod that's just going to piss on you. And like have this active dominance over you. But Coot walks out in the movie and just in the distance sees Declan on his knees and Rawhead with his back to him, just pissing all over Declan's like chest.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time watching the movie, I was like, what? Wait, what? Excuse me? Why is he just pissing on him? But in the movie, it's set up that is the type of shit he does. Like, it's not out of character. It's not that it's still shocking, but it's like, oh, yes, that is exactly something that Rawhead would do in the book. Like, he sits and like rips people's dicks off and like picks out their yummiest organs and pisses on them and just like, fuck humanity. But in this movie, he's just like, he was the ultimate warrior screaming and ripping people's throats out, and all of a sudden he's pissing on them.
Yeah. Again, a different new power.
Giant streams of violent piss. Coot goes in the church.
This is another reason to read the comic, to just see that artwork. It's the most insane, like half a page of art. They dedicate, let me count real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to 9 panels of this scene.
Just depravity.
Yeah, just depravity.
I mean, it's a great part in the story, but I gotta see the comic because this is such a wild scene. Because I remember even when I was reading, I was like, is he? Oh yeah, the pissing, because I had like forgot about it from the movie. So Coot goes back into the church and calls the cops, and I wish we could have heard the whole conversation of like, hey, I saw Declan. You guys know Declan, right? I walked outside and he's out in the field and he's letting the monster piss on him. You guys got to get out here. It's wild. He's wilding out. Then Rawhead just bursts into the church door, just kicks it off the hinges kind of thing, chases Coot through the church. Meanwhile, pissy ass Declan just shows up behind him in the church and it starts explaining stuff about like, he's my God and your God's a bitch and my God rules. And just saying all this stuff. And Coot's all very shocked. Like, you're a man of God. And he's like, Rawhead's my new God now. And blah, 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 And And then he sees some records that Declan was hiding, and it's just like a drawing of Rawhead. It's all happening way too fast.
Yeah, it's too much.
Yeah. And then there's a great line here where then, Declan is like a younger man and Coot is old. So he's like, he kind of has the upper hand physically on Coot, and he's like, get up the stairs. Like he's going to go feed him to Rawhead, basically. He's like, get up the stairs. And he's like, for the love of God, do this. And he goes, get upstairs, fuck face. I can't keep God waiting. It's a great line. Declan has been up there burning shit in the church, which is like something he's been doing for a while in the story. Like he's just ripping up all the Bibles, all the sacred texts, everything, just burning it. Like that's what Rawhead told him to do. Right. So, he is, Declan gives Coot to Rawhead, but you don't really see anything because like the only thing you really see is like Rawhead is not scared of like Christian iconography. So that's one of the things that they're kind of suggesting, right? Is he's not scared of that. That doesn't have anything to do with like what he's about predates, Christianity is kind of what they're trying to suggest. That's very heavily suggested in the story, not as much in the movie. So he walks out and he walks out with Coot, right? Rawhead does. And in the book, he's just kind of got him dangling there, and you don't know if he's alive or dead. But in the book, he walks out holding him and then press slams him like Ultimate Warrior style. Press slams Coot. And in the book, it's this big standoff. And they do it in the movie too, but not as much. But it's like, don't shoot him because we don't want to hit Coot. But in this movie, he's just holding him above his head. And they're speculating as to whether he's dead or not. That's part in the story. But then ultimately he press slams him. And then right as they're all about to shoot, the cop that's been hypnotized sets all the cops and their cars on fire with gasoline. And this is the best scene in the movie. Yeah. You get this, you get this big, multiple body burns, flaming cars. The cop kneels in front of Rawhead's feet, and as he's on fire, he's like, for you. It's like, it's pretty sick.
It's sick. It rules. Like he walks, like he sets everybody on fire and then walks through
it's sick. It rules.
Yeah. And then he sets everybody on fire and then walks through the fire himself, gets set on fire just to kneel in front of Rawhead and be like, I did it all for you.
It's all for you, Damien.
Yeah.
It's an awesome scene. And this is what the scene that kind of takes the place of the like chaotic scene at the end of the story. Because the final showdown in the end of the story isn't just like the one-on-one like it is in this movie. And we'll get to it. But this is kind of taking the place of the chaotic craziness that is the end of the story. So Howard and Conroy hear something, about the altar. As Coot's dying, they run over and they're like, he's kind of laying against a gravestone. He's like, the altar, he just says something. They're like, oh, let's go check the altar. Howard heads back into the church. Declan's still in there tearing shit up. And they have a little brief fight scene. And Howard pries open. Ultimately, he burns Declan with a burning Bible, which doesn't happen in the story. But Howard pries open the altar, and there's what I can only describe as a glowing piece of the radical rock, not the aggro crag, but some sort of a woman like idol. And it looks like a little woman, like a little pregnant woman. In the book, he just describes it as like roughly the size of a football. It just looks like a fucking rock. So this differs pretty significantly from the story. Declan tells Rawhead Howard, got the thing in the altar, and now there's this showdown between Howard and Rawhead in the graveyard of the church. In the book, there's a lot of chaos going on. There's a lot of things that happen with a lot of different characters in the town, and basically he has like ravaged a section of town. It's shit is chaotic. There are fires burning everywhere. Like Rawhead has started to essentially like lay siege to the countryside, which is what his intentions were the whole time. Yeah. And I'll spoil the end of the story. So if you don't want to hear it, I mean, obviously we've talked a lot of it about, but the ending, you know, if you haven't read it, skip ahead a couple minutes. Rawhead, essentially, they have this ancient stone, which you come to realize is some sort of idol that represents feminine energy. And there's a lot of there's like this kind of dichotomy between Rawhead, who is like this just consume, eat, fuck, violence. You know, he's just this like raw, almost masculine energy. And the idea of like nurturing, like he's destroy, he's man, destroy, women, you know, gives life and nurtures. That's kind of dichotomy that they're displaying here in nature. And in the book, it's just a symbol, really. It kind of scares Rawhead a little bit because it kind of gives him pause, because he's like, oh, I remember that was not cool. Like that's the opposite of what I'm about. And then the way they kill Rawhead in the story is essentially he accidentally burns his own face, kind of, and can't see. And so then all the townsfolk take that as an opportunity to run up and just all beat his ass, just stomp him out, hit him with freaking pitchforks and stab him and beat his ass. And then once he's on the ground, Howard takes the big stone football that he found in the altar and smashes Rawhead's skull with it and splats his brains everywhere. That's how they kill him in the story.
Yeah.
That's not what happens in the movie at all.
No. So the comic, I think this is the one thing that the comic kind of sticks to with the movie, is that when it's illustrated, it's very clear that it is like a fertility idol rather than just like a smooth football. So it's very clear that it's a fertility idol. But other than that, they stick to, you know, the story ending of like Rawhead is destroying the town. He's been ripping cars apart because they just park on the street and he can just tear them open. And then he lights gasoline fires, but he burns like half his face. And then Ron shows up with the idol, and then just in that instant of like Rawhead being, you know, struck by the symbol of fertility, people come up and then just start stabbing him and take him down, and then they smash his fucking brain in.
Yeah. So it's way more ambiguous, the idol thing in the book. It sounds like it's a little bit more descript in the comic book, and then in the movie, it's everything. It's so like, I mean, they just really paint it out so much, and it's so different. So the showdown, like I said, is initially between Howard and Rawhead, and then I don't know, Declan gets kind of horny as Rawhead rips his throat out, like, because he's been talking the whole time about how he's, you know, aspires for Rawhead to eat him. That would be like, that's how he wants to die.
We gotta go back to one of Declan's line reads, because it might be the best / worst line read in the whole film. Is fucking him and Coot are arguing, and Coot's like,
when they're still in the church.
And Coot's like, what do you think he's going to do to you? And Declan says, kill me, I hope. just the way he extends hope.
That's even before he goes like, get upstairs, fuckface. Like that's in that same scene. Yeah.
Just the way he extends hope for like seconds. It's like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah, that was great. It's almost like that outtake from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where like the what are the brothers that fuck each other?
The McPoyles.
You know, the McPoyles. Have you ever seen that ad read when they're at it's the McPoyle wedding episode, and he's like, "Where's your brother?" And he's like, "He's dead," and they're like, "He died?" And he's going, "He's dead." That outtake, that's almost how he delivers that line. Anyway, so the wife shows up for some reason, right? And now her like feminine energy, she's holding up the it's like a talisman / idol, whatever. She holds up the idol, which in the movie like has a little vagina, like it's very surface level, and this crazy red robed goddess like image projection, it's almost like it jumps up above her head in this like magical glowing lights, and energy lightning is bouncing around off of all the ancient graves, and it subdues Rawhead long enough for Howard to just whack him with a shovel or something.
Either it happens very fast,
or like a mattock, like a pickaxe or something, right?
Yeah.
And then the whole like feminine fear thing is played out a lot more, because he's like, even Howard, like, it's like just cut to Howard and he's like, it had to be a woman. It's just like really, I mean, I get it. You got to explain this more to a movie audience, but
yeah.
I think none of the whole like fear of women happened before this, whereas that's like laid out a little bit more in the story.
Yeah, I mean, aside from Rex like not attacking the pregnant woman at the beginning but like the like you said, the little vagina on the statue opens to glowing light, and so it's shooting out light, and then like the red robe individual is something that was already telegraphed in the church because it's on the stained glass window. But Howard had assumed, I didn't even
make that connection. I was just like, this is so dumb.
Yeah. Well, Howard had assumed that it was a man. It was like an ancient priest, but oh no, it's a priestess in charge of it. It's a lady. Yeah. So yeah, this is very movifying it, because you have to have a spectacular ending, and they do that with all the fucking Ghostbuster effects on the film, shooting all the lasers out and paralyzing Rex, and then so the ending in the story, or at least the comic, is the way I interpret it, is we've been talking about how like it's the femininity that is the reverse and the opposition to Rex. But that's not what defeats him in the actual story. It's still actually male energy that's defeating him, because like they're just brutalizing him, and then they smash his head in with a rock. Like it's not the same thing as we're seeing here, but we see maybe a little bit of it, because Rex is taken down and paralyzed by the feminine energy. And if he had just been left to get fully destroyed, rather than Howard coming in and hitting him with like the axe or the shovel or whatever, because that causes the grave to break, and he falls down the hole.
Yeah, because the energy that she's putting on him is like kind of withering him up a little bit. Like he becomes a little bit more like little and withered. And then it's kind of like, Howard just comes up and like, and just whacks him. And it's like, you kind of fucked it up. You get the feeling he maybe didn't allow the continuation to, or the whatever they were doing to him to finalize or something, didn't complete whatever was happening.
Yeah, or they didn't know how to fully complete it because it was lost knowledge. Also, she fucks it up and drops the fertility statue in the hole too. Yeah, it's just like, it's like a lot of like, well, maybe they were going for something else, but like, because this wasn't even in the original story, it's hard to like translate what this was fully supposed to be realized as anyway. Right. So I don't know.
Yeah. And then the next day you have the little kid that got scared earlier, and he's at like a gravestone, or he's at like a grave site, and Rawhead just kind of pops out. He's like, like they just zoom in on Rawhead's face. Basically, he doesn't even pop out. So you're like, oh, he's still alive. Got it. So they do a little Jason jump scare at the end, which is pretty dumb, kind of awesome. The whole movie, that's a good way to describe it. Pretty dumb, kind of awesome, fun, stupid, not nearly as good as the story. But it still rolls. I still like it. If you know Clive Barker, like I said, the story is way more like hedonistic, sacrilegious, sexual, brutal, like just, super into eating children and babies and organs and raping and ripping off dicks and all that sort of stuff. So if you're into that type of stuff, definitely go read the story. This is pretty tame in comparison. Everything's a lot more subtle in the story. The whole epitome of like Rawhead is the epitome of death, destruction, consumption, I'll say, and like the pregnant mother, whether, whoever it be, whether it be the idol or in real life, is like the definition of like life and creation and nurturing. So that is like what balances him out, I guess. Like it's supposed to be this whole big like naturalistic kind of story of like, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of avenues for symbolism here, and I didn't read up on any, but I wonder if it's like, this kind of the earth, reclaiming the natural order type of thing in the story. I got that almost an environmental message in that sense.
Sure.
But then there's also definitely like a lot of, like gender role type of stuff, obviously, as there is in a lot of Clive Barker's work. Like that's undoubtedly there. That's big with him. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't read up on a lot of symbolism.
There's just a lot of like undertones through of all kinds of things, like the things you mentioned, but also like the new world is rejecting the old world and just completely destroying it. Because like, even though Rex was like all powerful, back in the day, and like I think they even make mention of like his brothers. So like there was more than just Rex back in the day.
They do, so, yeah. That this was a race of apex predators.
Yeah, so like back in the day they were the king shit. They were everything, but today he can't survive. Even though he can do a little bit of killing, eventually the guns would have taken him down. Eventually,
something as simple as gasoline eventually killed him.
Yeah, he burned himself on gasoline because he's too stupid. He doesn't know what a car is, and then he gets his head smashed in with a rock. So he wasn't really all that powerful. But in the end, what he's representing is he's representing an old world that just has no place anymore, and even something as all powerful as him gets consumed by just the suburban village life. Because Ron, as we mentioned in the story, is just a wealthy, like English elite who is like he's only in that town because he wanted to buy a small, like he could buy like a
country
house.
home.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. He was like a finance guy or something.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he just represents this encroachment of the urban life and the erasure of culture and all of that type of shit. Yeah. And in the end, he wins the story. So
even though he dies, it's presumed that he is mortally wounded or close to it at the end of the story, right?
That's not in the comic.
No, I think in the story it doesn't say it flat out, but like I think he was like mortally wounded or close to it in the story. I'd have to go back and reread the ending, but it feels pretty like it was like his last hurrah was smashing down the rock that killed him. Again, I might be imagining that, but that's kind of what I remember. It's been probably a month since I read the story, but
yeah. But then also you have like the tones of religion as well, and like religion is erased in this film as well. Or it's erased in the film, but in the story, because both Coot and Declan, it doesn't matter if they stayed faithful or not, or switched allegiances. They were both erased for worship, is what they were. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of cool themes in this story. It just you have to read the actual story before you watch the movie to appreciate the movie a little better. Because otherwise, the movie is just dumbass fucking monster film with
bonkers,
crazy scenes.
Pissing,
yeah, crazy scenes happening.
Yeah. All right, guys. Hey, if you've got any other suggestions for Clive Barker movies, we should check it out. He's got a lot of bonkers ass stories that would be just impossible to put on screen. But I'm excited to go out and see, because like I've been on the Stephen King bandwagon for since I was a kid, and I've seen so many Stephen King adaptations, and I want to go and see if there's got to be some other Clive Barker adaptations and adjacent ones. Obviously the whole like Dollar Baby thing and everything with Stephen King like really helped to get a lot of those made, but now I'm curious to go do a little bit more research and see what other Clive Barker adaptations are out there. So and as always, go follow us on the social medias and give us some suggestions. We like to talk about wacky ass movies in our minisodes, and sometimes we get the we have some in our head, and sometimes we're looking for ideas, just like we were this week. So and I didn't mention at the top of the show, as always, if you want to definitely go check us out on the Patreon, listen to that Youth Group is Forever, get all that special stuff. But also, if you want to write us a review on your podcatcher app, on your Apple Podcasts, Spotify's, whatever, please do that, because it helps out a lot. And you can DM me your address. I'll send some fucking stickers in the mail. I finally broke down. This is silly that it took me this long, but I finally broke down and got Spotify Premium this week. And so I've been spending a lot of time on the Spotify's. I had Amazon Music for a long time because it came with one of those subscriptions I had to something else, but Amazon Music sucks. It fucking sucks. Yeah, it's terrible. And I finally just canceled it and got Spotify. And I'm like, fuck, why did I wait so long to do that? So I've been checking out the Spotify's on there. If you're on the Spotify, go over there and write us a review on the podcast section. Give us all the stars. Say, these guys are all right. And let me know if you want me to send you some fucking stickers and little spooky ookies in the mail. Steve, anything else? Obviously, join us next Monday, which will be our Showdown episode, as we have Louie from the Haunted Hangover podcast to want to talk about Eerie, Indiana episodes. Anything else in the meantime we should be mentioning, Steve?
No, I just was thinking about how I would love to see like a modern remake of this film, because
that'd be great.
One, I don't like the creature design in either the comic or the movie, so let's try to get a good Rawhead design. Two, I think this would be awesome. Like, if they've already changed it out of the small English town, and I think that was probably of the time back then. I think you could apply that to today and get a better sense if like you set it somewhere like Oklahoma. And you get into like that gentrification of like bringing the Starbucks into the Midwest, and like how all these old West towns are now like being gentrified in by people who are moving out of the big cities from LA and Dallas Fort Worth area and shit like that. Because then you have the multiple layers of history from like Native American history, which was replaced by these rootin' tootin' fellas that. Now those rootin' tootin' fellas are now getting replaced by just fucking graphic designers. So like, I think you can find those kind of levels in that, and then you can have maybe get a nice Skinwalker type Rawhead Rex instead of fucking goof ass shit that we've been seeing.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see it somewhere in like the upper Midwest. In Minnesota and the Dakotas, Montana, or even in the Pacific Northwest. That'd be cool too.
Yeah, Idaho-ish.
Yeah, I could see some like dang old monsters up there. Well, guys, make it. Let's go. Do a ViewFundMe account. I'd give some money to that. All right, boys and ghouls. For the Halloween is Forever crew, I'm Brian.
And I'm Piss King.
You're the Piss King? Wow, it's great to meet you.
Yeah.
How come you've never pissed on me before? That's wild.
I don't know.
All right, bye, guys. Bye.
You haven't submitted to the worship.
It's true. All right, I'll work on that.